They'll blanket you in Wi-Fi and profit off the radiation. Congregation collecting the people for that Satan. I keeps it blazing, cause I can read between the lines. I ain't blind, we unwind what they're really saying. Genetically modify what you're tasting. Don't need that college promise, so now you live up in your mom's basement. Redesign time so your mind is always wasted. Programmed to crave the basics. Keep the beta in stasis. Pay the state, kid. You're in debt for being born. Messengers are more than just the price for being warned. Don't be alarmed. Disconnect from their machinations. Stop subscribing to the folly of own nations. Bone breaking ain't the answer, cause they seek the ownership of souls. Spread the seeds and watch them grow. Break the chains of control. Break the chains of control.
Sweet eternal balance of all that is good, true, and beautiful, friends. Welcome back to Rogue Ways random Saturday night episode. It's not going to be a full episode, but I do have some things I want to share with you from around the world. I want to tell you about my crazy week I've had, if you've been wondering why there was no Minopath on Thursday, and other such things that made it seem like I had disappeared. And I also want to remind everybody of One Day of Brightness tomorrow. Super excited. Couldn't be better. I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed to be able to do this One Day of Brightness event with everyone. And it's so exciting. And this is the best one yet. So the brightness is returning. Return of the brightness, both because One Day of Brightness is tomorrow and because within a few days, the light will actually start to grow instead of diminish. It's metaphorical and it's also physical truth, science. It's happening. The world will literally have more sun day after day after day, more and more brightness. And we're going to take that really deep and bring more brightness, more and more brightness to our bright winter that we're creating together and our bright lives that we're creating together. And there's so many things going on in the world that make it so bright right now. So we're going to look at some of those as well. What's up, Johnny Larson? Yes, I'm back. And Travis Skunk and Serena Del Mar in the YouTube chats. Nice to see you guys. It's been a while, I feel like. Or maybe I just don't always see my YouTube chats anymore. But I love you all, and I'm so glad. I'm so glad. So here's the thing. This week on... God, I'm like losing track of time here. I think it was last Friday, so a little over a week from today, I developed occipital neuralgia. And if you watched the episode on that next Sunday, then you heard me talk about it. And on Tuesday, it was kind of okay. I actually pre-recorded that episode and released it later. So it wasn't, you maybe didn't hear about it as much, but it's brutal. And if you don't know, occipital neuralgia is this nerve that comes at the very, very tippy top of your neck, where your topmost vertebrae meets your skull. There's a nerve there that can get pinched. And I've had slipped discs. If you know that my back has just extreme issues far beyond what most people can imagine, far beyond what most people will accept when I try to tell them about it. I always tell people, my spine is an S. It was a more condensed S before I got 2 metal rods put on either side of it, extending it. On that day, which was 25 years ago or so, I grew 2 inches. I didn't actually grow 2 inches, right? But I straightened out 2 inches worth of distance, which is extreme for a body. I had to learn how to walk again, and I had to learn how to move and put on my shoes and brush my teeth, everything, because everything you ever do is connected to your spine. And then after that, I started developing all sorts of issues because when your spine doesn't move because there's metal rods holding it in place, the few vertebrae I have up in my neck and down below in my lowest spine, those areas move. It's almost like they move more to absorb the movement that's not happening in the rest of my spine. So I would develop degraded discs, otherwise known as slipped discs, and pinched nerves and things. And so this has been going on for 20 years or more. And extreme pain. I'd have muscle spasms. If you've ever had a muscle spasm, I'd have those regularly most days. And sometimes you have 3 major groups of muscles in your back, and all 3 would be spasming at once, in addition to slipped discs and pinched nerves. So I'd have all this pain, right? I've had chronic pain for my whole life. That's its own issue. So I'm just letting you know my experience with pain is extensive, and I'm really good at it. I'm very good at handling pain because of this. I don't take pain-killing drugs because I want to be able to live my life and have a clear mind and a clear experience. And some people think that means that my pain isn't that bad. And they're free to think that if they want. But what it really is that I have learned how to live in pain, in the most pain reduction I can create for myself outside of drugs. And that means that sometimes I'm still in great amounts of pain and I can't move or think or do things. So when this happened, the part of me was like, well, this isn't new. This is the same pain I always have, right? It's a slipped disc. I could tell it was a slipped disc or whatever you want to call that, degraded disc and pinched nerve. But it was also almost exactly like a migraine. So if anybody out there has had occipital neuralgia, they know what I'm talking about. You have the muscle spasm pain, you have the pinched nerve pain, and you have what feels like a migraine. And all of that is happening at once. So it was really intense, like really, really intense. And of course I did really high CBD, low THC, and some days I did even a little bit higher THC. And that just kind of like, it doesn't take the pain away truly. It just like relaxes you enough that like the pain can kind of fade back a bit from your awareness. It's still happening, but it helps a lot. Keeping me calm and everything. So I had a full week of this. I had a full 7 days of just brutal pain, just migraine-like energy. And same thing, like it makes you nauseous sometimes. It hurts so bad. That nerve that was pinching, it goes everywhere. Like it goes up, it goes around, it comes all the way back to my eye. It was all on my right side, but it's like my whole head. It would come down into my jaw. It came down into my throat. My throat would like hurt and like, you know, like when you have a sore throat almost, like it just felt like raw from a nerve, you know, and then it went down my shoulders and I have another slip disc and nerve pain already below that in my, right below my neck. And so that was getting irritated. It was like, because this was so irritated, it was irritating that. So then that was starting to flare up and I was like, dude, I can't, please God, don't let me have both at once. It was already bad enough. And then, thank God, I finally got into the chiropractor. It took me a while because I was supposed to go on Monday and they had to reschedule and blah, blah, blah. This is just the beginning of the shit show. So then I got to the chiropractor finally. If you've been to a chiropractor with occipital neuralgia, then you know also that it had been seeming like it would just improve and improve. I was like, okay, maybe it's going away. And then I read that some people have this for a year. Some people have surgery on it to like kill the nerve. It's crazy because it hurts so bad and you can't do shit. You cannot do shit when your whole head is throbbing with migraine and your whole like body is activated from it. So I got to the chiropractor. She's like, oh my God. Yeah. She's like, what about here? And she touches this spot. It's like, oh my God, it's tender to the touch too, which my other pinched nerves have never really been. But she could like touch the nerve and she could trace it. And the whole time was like burning fire. She's like, yep, that's your occipital nerve. It's like, thanks for pointing that out. So she's super sweet and she's amazing. But she wanted to make sure, you know, you're not having a stroke or something and it's actually this occipital nerve. So that hurt really bad just to be like manipulated slightly to find it. And then she's like, okay, here we go. Are you ready for this? And she's never said that to me in the whole time, like 3 years now that I've been seeing her. And I was like, ew. But I know too that you just like completely relax, because if you're like tensed up, like that's not gonna go well for you or your neck or your spine. And so I really relaxed, and she pulled my head out and then did like the crack, like as my head was like pulled up, you know, like your neck was fully extended. And it was insane. It was so painful. It was so painful. And then I was like dizzy and nauseous and like gross from the pain of the adjustment. But I knew I could feel it release. As much as it hurt to do it, I could tell that it had helped. So the rest of that night, it hurt really, really bad, actually. I couldn't move my head at all. I don't know if you've ever, you know, like literally like that much was painful. Like this much was painful. Like, tiny movements in my head was hurting super bad. So I spent another night like that. The next morning she was going to see me again. So I went in and it actually felt pretty good. And then she did one more adjustment. She's like, I think you're actually out of the woods now. And it's been better since then. So that was yesterday morning that I got my second adjustment, and it's been better since then. I'm so grateful, So grateful. So grateful to have understanding of how much chiropractic helps. And I'm sure there's a million other things I could have tried too, but I really believe the structural pinching of it is you got to address that somehow. So if anybody's out there that you know that might have occipital neuralgia someday, this is something you want to do. And people ask, well, why did this happen? I used to believe it was because God hated me, but that's not why. I understand now there's literally on the soul level, there's, spiritual things going on that need to be addressed and dealt with. And, if that's too woo-woo for you, you could then just look at the fact that my spine has massive structural, lacking in integrity structurally throughout its entire self. And so you could just blame it on that if you want. But some people say it's because you sleep funny or, you just like crank your neck and whatever. There could be a million reasons, right? I lean towards the similar, or the spiritual. Blue House Charm in the house. I love you right back. Thank you so much for that love. And I genuinely know for sure that when I put out the call, if you're one of those people who saw it on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or in the Telegram chat or on Locals, that all those prayers that I called out for, I was like, please visualize me healthy and well in every way, thriving and happy. And you guys did it. And I know that helped. I know it did. And I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful for that. Even if you're listening to this now, you could send a little back in time, send a little bit to yourself, and hopefully you never have another crisis. But if you did, well, I'll send some to you too. So thank you for that. I'm really grateful. I'm humbled by it every time. I can feel it when it comes, and I just know how beautiful it is and how important it is. So I'm very grateful for you. Thank you for supporting me through that really rough time. That wasn't all, though. At the same time that I was devolving into occipital neuralgia madness, we also had this crazy windstorm. Oh, and Johnny, if you're still listening, if you want to send me the video, I would love to share it with people. Johnny got the most amazing video ever. It's so crazy, and I just want to show it to you. But, it was getting really windy, and we have chickens, and so we're like aware of the weather. We try to be aware of the weather. I know some people just aren't, but we're like, wow, it's really getting windy. And we get it. Sometimes we get gusts. We're kind of in like a little valley right off the mountains. And so it can happen. It can happen that the wind picks up and is a bit gusty and a bit much. And, but this was getting a little intense. And I was like, oh man. And then the lights were kind of flickering. I was like, wow, maybe we're going to lose power. And then we got those emergency alerts that were like severe weather warning. And I was like, oh, they're going to like fuck us, right? Because we all know the geoengineering is real and that the climate change agenda is next. And so, it's been next, right? We've been dealing with it, but that's part of the agenda. And so they've got to, as I've been saying, if you've been listening to me for the past, I don't know, weeks, month, whatever, they're going to give each region, and they've already started on many of us, a very intense weather event. So that we can all say to each other, oh, wow, isn't climate change so bad? It's so bad. It's so bad. It is so bad. I wish they would stop spraying the skies and turning on their harp and their necks red and fucking us over. That's what's bad about it. That'd be nice to stop. It's not going to stop from us driving electric cars that still pollute horribly and other false things, supporting Greta and whatever bullshit, paying more in taxes so the politicians can have more money to spend. Like, obviously those things aren't going to help stop them from geoengineering, because that's what we really need to do if we want the climate to stop being crazy. There's always wind events, weather events and things, right? But these are out of category, out of season, and unseasonable and just intense. And so that's what started to happen. We saw the wind pick up, the power starting to be shaky, and then the power goes out. And I, of course, think this is the perfect time to take a shower. So I take a shower. And Johnny's like, hey, the tree out here is like, it's getting really crazy. Whoops. I hope I'm still streaming to Rockfin. I did just leave the page. And I don't know what that does. Sorry, everybody else. I just need to check and make sure that's okay still. I think it is. Oh no. It says waiting for stream. I don't know if I've been streaming to Rockfin for the past 45 seconds or not, but I should be good now. If you're listening to this, you may need to refresh. So he got this video. Okay, here it is. I'm going to hopefully download it quickly and be able to play it for you. And he comes in. Yeah, here it is.
Look at that shit. You can see the root system.
Hold on. I don't think I have the right screen share on. Oh my gosh. Now it's just gone. Okay. Here we go. So this is the video he took. He came in and told me that the roots of the tree are weird, so watch the ground in front of this tree.
Look at that shit. You can see the root system moving on this tree when the big gusts come.
See it moving. The whole... Ah!
Oh, there it went. Holy shit.
Oh, I still get so sad when I see that. That was our big, beautiful, only good shade tree evergreen falling down in the hundreds of miles per hour wind. So I got out of the shower and saw my favorite tree dead. I sit in this chair right next to the window and look at that tree because there's birds and there's squirrels and it's cute, and I like drink my coffee or whatever I'm doing. And now the tree's gone and I'm so sad. I literally cried. Johnny was like, she's crazy. But I was like, that was my friend. That was my tree. I'm not joking. Like, that's my friend. We hang out together and we chat, and now he's dead. So I'm going to try to make cuttings of my tree, and I'm going to try to help him to live on in other ways, and hopefully have some other trees in our yard that are that beautiful. It's such a beautiful, tall, old, beautiful tree. So just give a little love to my tree if you want. And so that was really sad. And I was like, man, the power's out and the tree's down, and I was hungry and my hair's wet, which was this is why you shouldn't shower when the power goes out. Because if it doesn't come back on and your hair's wet and then it gets 20 degrees outside, then you're going to freeze to death. So I hopefully don't need to learn that lesson again. But with my wet hair and no power and being hungry, I was like, well, let's go. We'll get in Falkor on my giant big green van and we'll drive around the city and we'll see what's going on. Because the wind was starting to die. Like, the tree had fallen and the wind was just starting to die down. So it's like, it's not that bad anymore. We'll go see. And we drove around in my giant green van, Falkor, and it was insane. I've never seen a city so damaged. I know that like tornadoes are way worse and hurricanes are way worse and all of this stuff, but just in like a place that doesn't normally have things like that, to have this severe wind, those giant power pylons that are like, 100 feet tall, those huge metal ones that are way bigger than just the normal ones that carry most of the lines, those big ones, those were lying on their side. Those aren't supposed to blow over ever. They're metal. They're huge for a reason. Those were laying on their side in a huge row down one of these main roads. There was the signs that, stores have propped up on their roof on whatever. Those were like ripped off. The Lowe's had lost its roof. We went to the Lowe's to get something unrelated to the storm, and they're like, yeah, we don't have a roof right now. I mean, we could see a roof, but the roof on top of that had like blown away. Of a Lowe's, like a huge roof. Their sheds out in their parking lot were all moved like to the other end of the parking lot. Like, the wind had pushed the sheds all the way over, and some of them had tumbled that far, and so they were just in pieces. There was rock piles that were blown. I mean, rocks were blown out of their piles. My garden beds, all of the mulch on top, blown out of the bed. So I know none of these things matters too much on their own, but it was pretty crazy to drive through a city, a very modern city, and just see it in like tatters. All the lights were out. Every light was out. Every street we drove down had a downed tree, at least one, like partially blocking part of the road. And we drove around for probably like a square 4 miles, like not a huge section of the city, but just, we went to a couple places and tried to take back roads just to see what was going on. And we saw like 50 to 70 downed evergreens, just like ours. They just toppled one after the other, after the other, after the other. There's just so many trees down. And the big olive trees here tended to fare better, but they still lost lots of branches. And, you know, there was, at one point we saw an animal carrier just blowing down the street whole, and it was just like, it was so weird. What's up, Kavar? Nice to see you. It definitely was like a tough typhoon, right? Very, very fast. We were hearing that this was like typhoon/hurricane strength winds. So we weren't really ready for that. And there was no real warning. It just happened out of nowhere. Usually they're like, tomorrow there's going to be this and that. And they're like, nope, right now there's going to be this. And I know they do, because I know that they're the ones that made it happen. But yeah, I was trying to be the calm in the storm. It really didn't bother me that much. And in my head, I was like, well, even though there's a lot of destruction and stuff, I mean, they're going to get the power back on sometime. So we ate at a restaurant that still had power, and we drove back and saw more damage. And we were like, this is really, really intense. But, you know, again, it's what it is. We lost our tree. It's super sad, but we'll figure it out. We're here. Our chickens are here. We're fine. We came back home, and then the power didn't come on. And we were like, I wonder. And then we're like, oh, we're probably being silly. It's going to come on tonight, you know, and whatever. And then the more we thought about it, we're like, what if it doesn't come on tonight? It's going to be 20 degrees outside. We still don't have a generator yet because we have nowhere to keep it without it getting stolen. It's not because we don't want one. It's not because we don't need one. We literally have nowhere to put it, and it would just get jacked. So we have no way to back up our own power. And then we're like, it's going to be that cold. What if the power doesn't come on? And we're like, oh, we'll just drive up. His parents are nearby. We'll stay with them. They have power and heat and food and whatever. So we packed our little bags, and I grabbed nothing because I was like, well, we're just coming right back tomorrow. We went up, and so I didn't have my laptop, which was the key part that I would have needed to have the rest of my life continue. And we went up there, and occipital neuralgia was blinding and horrible still. And, you know, we rested. And the next day we text our neighbors. Nope, power's still not on. And we went and looked at the power map, and they're like, power might not be on throughout the weekend. We're like, what? This is like Thursday. Like, for the weekend? That's multiple days. So when I was a child growing up, we had times where the power was out for 3 days. But this is the 80s in a rural ass area full of trees, forests everywhere. It was normal to have the power out for multiple days because storms would come through, not nearly as bad as this one, but we just had more trees. And, you know, things would happen. And then we had wood stoves in the 80s still. And we just knew how to get by. It wasn't a big deal. No one has wood stoves now. And in a city, no one prepares for things like this. And there was just so many power outages throughout the whole city that it took them until today. This is Saturday now. This all happened on Wednesday? Or was it Tuesday? I don't know. Johnny can correct me in the chat if he's still there. Anyways, multiple days. It was nearly 4 days, I think, without power here. And so finally this morning, it came back on, and we were like, yes. And so we got to come home. We got to sort of clean up our yard a little. We're still not done. The tree's still down. We've just only been home for a few hours now. I'm just grateful. I'm grateful we got to have that time. I was forced to be up where my chiropractor is, so I got to be able to see her twice, which was necessary for the occipital neuralgia to really pass. I don't know if I would have done that because she's really far away from me, actually. And then I also got to rest because I didn't have the option of working. Because if I would have brought my computer, I would have been working. And instead, I just laid in this bed and rested for like days. And that also is part of why I was able to heal, I think, so quickly. So yeah, it was actually in a way kind of good that we were forced to be up there that long. And we're very lucky to have a place that we could stay with warmth and food and, you know, all of these things. Very lucky. So I appreciate all those things despite how frustrating it also was in other ways. So thank you, Erin, so much for the tips. I love you. I'm so grateful for the support. David Duralt's in the house. It's been a long time, David. It's nice to see you. Wednesday. It was Wednesday. Okay, good. So I'm not always great with time. So yeah, multiple days without power, blinding, horrifying pain, but a forced vacation, forced rest. And the few times I did venture out, you know, because I've had chronic pain for so long that I've learned that you can either be miserable in pain in a bed or you can be miserable in pain and out doing something. So sometimes I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go do something. Like, I'm just going to be horribly inflamed and in pain either way. I may as well like live a little. So I got to go to a lake and walk around a little bit. So, we made the best of it. And thank God that now the power is on and we can do one day of brightness tomorrow. So I'm so excited about that. I was starting to get a little nervous, like, what am I going to have to get a hotel and like do it from a hotel? It's going to be weird. I don't have all my like energy and juju around me. And now the power is back on and I can do one day of brightness as normal. So if you're one of the many people who are coming tomorrow, know that everything is on track and normal. God damn it. I think I just fucked up the Rockfin stream again. This is what happens to a girl after days of blinding pain and no power. I'm just gonna tell them to refresh again. Oh, man. Thank you, Lindsay Smith. I am glad I'm feeling better as well. So one day of brightness tomorrow. It's going to be amazing. I just can't stress enough. If you watched the episode with Master Bruce Fenton was that last Tuesday? This week's been so weird. My brain is like not with it. But if you watched that, we talked in the second hour about the timing of this solstice. And I mean, the solstice is timed as the solstice is on the solstice for a reason. But not just that, but that this year there's something special about it and that there's a sort of crossroads, so to speak, for each and every person. And that you get to choose. You always get to choose. But that there's really something about this solstice that's even more of a sort of line in the sand. And I know if you're listening to this, you've already chosen the light and the goodness and the truth and the beauty. And so I am so glad that we all get to be together tomorrow for one day of brightness, winter solstice 2021, to share in that choosing of the light and brightening. So, we're bringing back the brightness on a spiritual level, on a mental level, on a physical level, on an emotional level. And all of our events tomorrow at One Day of Brightness are meant to support us in each one of those areas. We got a little bit of body, mind, heart, and soul, with each of our teachers, master teachers, and practitioners. And so that's intentional. We try to bring that balance every time we do One Day of Brightness. And that's because each one of us needs to take care of each of those areas, and we really need to choose what's best for us in each one of those areas. And that is part of how we bring the light and ever more presence on this plane all year long. It's not just tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we're tapping in specifically to the solstice energies in order to align and really boost that for each of us, boost our learning, boost our experience, boost our depth and our brightening. And the group really supports that as well. But it's meant to be carried throughout the year. It's meant to be carried throughout the whole winter. And it's really, really positive and beautiful. And so I'm sitting here like pumping it as though there's still tickets left. And I don't think there are. I just wanted to really tell you guys that it's still happening, just in case you were wondering, like, hey, she hasn't emailed or done a meditation or shown up to anything in many days. Yes, it is still happening. And so if you go to the shop and look, it usually tells you how many's left. There's two places left. Okay. So if you are out there and you are wondering what it's all about and you've been wanting to come, you can still join us. And there are 2 tickets left. So thank God. I was like, am I just talking about all this for no reason? No, I do want to just remind you that it's happening. And if I didn't mention it, we do have, I don't have it on this one. We do have Noriana Diesel, Phoenix Aurelius, and Catherine O'Shea tomorrow, in addition to myself, to round it out with our 4 sessions. We got breaks built in. It's recorded. If you can't make it to the whole entire thing, then you can always go back to the recording and see the parts that you missed, or go back to the parts that you didn't miss but just love so much. So that's always available to you as well with the admission ticket. And it starts at 10 a.m. Mountain tomorrow and goes to 5 p.m. And that sounds like a long time to some people, but I promise you, 100% of people have said every single time, I thought this was going to be long and drawn out, and it flew by. It flew by, and I can't even believe it's over, and I wish it wasn't over. Everyone is so glad that they came, and they're so sad when it is over. So I hope that there's 2 of you out there that really want to come tomorrow, and that there's a reason why we made this many tickets available. So we'll see what happens. Glenn J, thank you. Thank you for saying that I'm beautiful. Laura Taylor, yes, I'm also glad I'm relatively okay. Pretty good overall, honestly. CB, nice to see you in the chat there. Lindsay Smith's buying a generator today because they've had ice storms in that area. Yeah, everyone should have one, no matter where you live. City, rural, no matter what. The generator might be your best friend. And to also have, what you need in order to run it, which is most often fuel, is in the form of gas. And to also have a store of gas, or a giant store of gas if you're really on top of things. But, oh good, the Rockfin feed never stopped. Good to know. Yeah, the spraying has been going all day and all night. Lindsay Smith is saying it's tried to cover the moon so that we can't see the light. And she makes the best point, which is that we must bring the light into ourselves. And that's exactly what One Day of Brightness is also about. They would like to block out and disconnect us from the light on all levels. They want to block us out, so we can't see the moon and connect to it, or so we feel disconnected from one another with these silly lockdowns, or that we disconnect from the earth by strapping ourselves into the metaverse, and then we disconnect from source and spirit and soul, by becoming atheists and believing that we're just meat puppets, just chemical reactions, and that's all we are. And all of these things lead to a disconnection, and the One Day of Brightness is the reconnection. So especially if you're down or just not feeling right, it's a really good option. I also want to point out that at One Day of Brightness, I often give a little boost to people who might want to do Brighter You. And Brighter You has been exceptionally powerful for the people who have done it. And we just finished not that long ago our 6-week course in Brighter You. And Brighter You is really meant for people who are feeling called to explore their own spirituality and to broaden and deepen that connection and those channels, to discover their spiritual gifts, to experience being spiritually gifted, without any incontrovertible, I should just say with incontrovertible evidence that you are gifted, and to really understand what that is, and to empower you to then know that about yourself and then go on to offer it to others. So in just 6 weeks, all those things are yours, and it is true for everybody who has done it. And so coming tomorrow to the One Day of Brightness also gives you a little assistance in deciding to do Brighter You. And you can find that in the shop here if you click on Brighter You. It's all of the things that are Brighter You related, including most of the classes and consultations I offer, and the meditation that we do twice a week that you can buy a membership to for 1 month at a time. Even in the middle of a month, it just goes for a month. And the One Day of Brightness event. They're all kind of wrapped up under the heading of Brighter You, but Brighter You itself is the 6-week course, and you can click on it here and see more about it. And if you are ready to do it, then you can just grab it for yourself. And it's been very cool that the people who have done Brighter You, many of them have left reviews, so you can actually come here and see what they say about it. And, they're just, for example, Courtney says, Lindsay teaches you how to tap more deeply into your soul's purpose. It's a great course for anyone who wants to go deeper and to learn more about your gifts. Lindsay teaches you skills that you can use for a lifetime. Laura says, I'm forever grateful to Lindsay for offering this course. We all have the ability to connect with Source, and Lindsay shows you how to do it. You do have to put in the work and practice a lot, but you get so much out of it. Lindsay offers guidance, support, tips, and a safe space all throughout this course. I'm stunned at how much progress I made in just 6 weeks and truly honored to be a part of this special group of healers. The skills I've learned from this course will help me to continue to grow and heal for the rest of my life. I didn't tell these people what to say. This is just what they're saying in response to the course, genuinely. So I hope you know that. That these are just, they're not my, they are my friends now, but they're not like people who I've known my whole life who are just trying to, these are just people who decided, like you might, to do and commit to becoming a brighter channel for light in this world, and have then said this about it upon completing the course. Ashley writes, after participating in Lindsay's One Day of Brightness and the positive healing I received from that experience, I had a gut feeling I needed to take part in this course. I went in not really knowing what to expect and with some experience in meditation and connecting with Source. But each week, Lindsay provided more knowledge and techniques on connecting to Source and how to tap into your soul's purpose and gifts. Lindsay's positive energy and guidance during and outside of the course really made this experience memorable, and I'm so thankful to have been a part of it. With practice and commitment, I will continue to utilize everything Lindsay taught me as I progress and grow on my spiritual path. I'm still amazed with what I've been able to achieve thanks to Lindsay. Lindsay, I'm forever grateful to you and all that you do. Thank you, and much love to you. You all won't be disappointed. So thank you. Thank you for all those lovely reviews, and I just wanted to share them with you. I know some people out there have been wondering, what is Brighter You actually? What would I get out of it? And, what do I want to do it or not? And so hopefully that will help you decide. And again, One Day of Brightness is where we started. And then we started doing them every solstice and equinox by popular demand. And then Brighter You grew out of that because so many people were like, well, I wish there was something more. I love this. One Day is awesome. It's fulfilling. It carries you through the rest of the season. But also I want to take this in deeper and apply it more directly to go down my own path. And so Brighter You is the natural outgrowth of that. So in between every One Day of Brightness, we will have a Brighter You course. And so you can choose to do that now or later. It's just there for you whenever you might want it. Awesome. So I also just wanted to show you these hopeful things before I then call it a night, because I know Innerverse is about to go live, and I would love for everybody to go support Chance and watch Innerverse on Rockfin or elsewhere. So I just wanted you to see, Italy had the mandatory vaccination for all security forces, and that was approved. And suddenly the military warehouse where the vaccines were stored just caught fire. I don't think this is an act of God. I think this is an act of very intelligent humans who said, fine, if you want to force us into destroying possibly ourselves in whatever ways, then we're going to destroy your cache of destruction serum. Man, I shouldn't be saying this on YouTube, should I? Anyways, I love this. I wanted to share it. It makes me hopeful. There's this whole idea of in Vietnam or any war really, when your general or commander or whatever they're called tells you to do something that's immoral or illegal, and you don't agree with it, then you can frag them. Right? You go rogue and you turn on them and you take them out instead. And then your unit does what's right and moral and legal, or however you want to look at that. It's just like mutinying. So there always comes a time when no matter who and where you are, you do have to question the authorities above you. And you do have to sometimes take matters into your own hand. And thank God for the people in Italy who remember that truth, right? We have revolted against the crown for less than what our current governments are doing to us now. I also wanted to show you these people in New York. They tried to go to Applebee's. God knows why, but it's, I'm sure, a good choice because Applebee's has got to be... Applebee's has got to be more crowded than most restaurants, right?
You have no right. No rights at all.
This is what you guys do.
No freedom and no rights.
Arrested on what charges? Did anybody read that?
No, I was not read my rights. You don't need Miranda rights when they witness stage.
It's not telling them their Miranda rights. This is bullshit.
I don't even know.
No rights at all.
This is what you.
I don't even know if those cops know the law. There's no law about this as far as I know. There's mandates and there's guidelines and there's all these other, whatever they're calling all these things, that there's no actual law that says you can't be in a restaurant without a certain piece of paper or whatever they're calling a, procedure pass these days. I don't know if they're on your phone or whatever, because I'm not in that dystopian world. I'm in my own dystopian world. It's a little bit different. And so I'm not sure exactly what they're dealing with, but I don't think there's a law that says that you have to. And so they're, peacefully non-compliant and somebody pointed out, this reminds me of another certain civil rights issue in which people went and staged peaceful protests and sit-ins in restaurants. So I think it is right and good for people to resist, especially in these ways, before we possibly are pushed further in these ways that are more peaceful and can get press like this. And obviously the mainstream's not going to share this, but we are our own press and media at this point, and so you can share it with all the people you know, and I am sharing it with you for a similar reason. We have to do it for ourselves, and I hope that we're all inspired to do similar things. I know a lot of people will say a lot of things like, well, I have to wear a mask to do this and that, and I have to da, 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 da. You really don't ever have to. And the more you don't comply visibly and maybe loudly, but peacefully, the more you enable and empower others to do the same. So I love that people are doing things like this. Sorry they got arrested illegally by people who don't know the law, but that's what thugs do. I don't even know what this is. This was definitely not what I tried to open. Oh, right. This actually was what I meant to open. I was just like, what am I trying to say with this? Okay, so there's in London, in England, there's a lot of protests going on because they're, again, for something that is not harming anyone, initiating more further draconian lockdowns and such. And so there's been huge protests against it, which is very helpful and very cool. And you won't see those on the mainstream media either, but you can find them all over, especially Twitter, in various places. You can see just thousands, hundreds and thousands of people gathering together to resist this. Well, of course, as we know, always happens when we're being successful, the powers that be seemed to send in a group of people who were rowdy and started making it violent. I don't know. This video is not actually what I meant to play. Maybe it just switched to a different article. So anyways, you always have to be on the lookout for people in protests who are suddenly appearing and suddenly very violent and suddenly trying to get everyone else to be violent, because they're almost always paid agitators or agent provocateurs. And so it's been true all throughout history, and it's not different now. It's been true the whole time I was doing street level organizing and protests. 100% of the time we always had these people show up, and we always knew who they were. So it's another reason to really know who you're working with and organize correctly. But the nice thing is that this got called out instantly, and it was all over Twitter. Like, here's the group of people that don't belong here who are calling for violence. So we're never saying when we talk about this that you should never call for violence or you should never be violent. We're saying in the midst of a peaceful protest, that's not ever going to make sense to suddenly become violent. And these groups come in to try to do that, so that if the news covers it at all they cover is, look at this violence, these crazy violent protesters, fuck them. And then everyone's like, oh, this is awful, why are they doing this? Instead of seeing, wow, all of my fellow countrymen are so peacefully protesting, they must care deeply about this and it's really moving. So they just always try to twist it and paint it that way so they can dismiss it. Of course, we could also compare it to an entire summer and spring of other types of protests that we're not supposed to call riots that actually were violent and caused mass damage. And I'm not saying those weren't infiltrated too by agent provocateurs. I'm just saying we also were supposed to support those ones. So the news did happily cover it all. And even when it was violent, didn't call it violence. So you can see the double standard, the hypocrisy, and how they try to shape narratives, and this is one example of that. So when you hear about these protests, if anyone you know says, oh, they were all violent, you can maybe try to point out, well, actually, maybe hundreds of thousands of people weren't, and then one small group came in and suddenly started screaming about violence and doing violence. So, isn't that weird? But I love it. It's actually all across Europe that all these protests are going on, and it's very, very hopeful. It's in Australia, and it's all around the rest of the world as well. And the only reason it's not yet all over the United States, although it is in many ways, the only reason it's not a mass movement like this is because they haven't actually tried to do much to us again yet. We're still relatively in the clear. We don't have a lot of places, like New York City has it, but they have protests there. So, also don't rag on the US when you see we're not necessarily doing this, because we don't have the same level of active tyranny going on as these other places seem to have. The last thing I want to share with you is that I was recently on Everything Imaginable. It is a podcast for curious minds. And Gary and I had a really good discussion. It's a little over an hour. And, if you're not sick of hearing my voice or seeing my face yet, you might want to go check it out, give him a follow, a share, or whatever support you can. That's Everything Imaginable. And I will paste this link in the chats in case you want to go find it and you haven't yet. So, Sam Sidewalk, nice to see you. And so that was the last thing I wanted to share with you that was really hopeful and uplifting on this note of brightness as the storms have passed and we're cleaning up the wreckage here, as my pain has subsided and I've been miraculously healed and come back to myself fully, as everything is moving forward and we're going to have this wonderful day tomorrow, one day of brightness. I could talk about it for an hour and you still would have no idea what the hell I'm talking about unless you've been there. And then you just know because you feel it. Your life transforms, your body uplifts, your emotions get freed up, your mind clears, and your soul gets bright. We literally bring the brightness and we create the brightness with one another on a level so deep you can't even understand it unless you've experienced it before. It really is beautiful. It's like the best kind of church you've ever been to. It's unlike any church you could ever go to, but it's what church should be, really. It really is. I love it. Serena Del Mar actually knew some of those people in those crowds of the pictures we were sharing of the protests. I respect them for staying in the city and trying to help as well. Serena said that, and I'm seconding her comments. Sam, can't thank me enough for having June the Demon Seer on your channel. You're welcome. I like to have interesting array of people, eclectic views and experiences on the show. Yes, they are slowly trying to convert cities to that level of tyranny that we're seeing all over the world. And we should have resisted it long before now in various ways. But, we see that there is a line that people are willing to come out in droves to support. And that's hopeful. And that will also happen here. We're not immune to the resistance. And that's a good thing. If that sounded bad, no. I mean, we should resist. It's right to resist. It's right to not comply. And yes, so many more are awake now because it keeps getting more and more ridiculous. They're like, here's this new one. It's completely non-harmful. No, lower numbers than ever. Hospitals, lower number than ever. But we should lock down again. You're like, that doesn't make sense even to the blind that follow along without questioning. So I'm glad I saved your life. Sam, you saved your life, really, but you're welcome. And so I love you all. Go over to Chance at Interverse right now. Just hop from this stream to that stream and have fun with him. I think he put together a happy mixtape for you for a Christmas present, and so you can connect with that. I'll see you at One Day of Brightness tomorrow if you're going. If you're not, you should. There's 2 tickets left, so one of them's for you, I'm sure. And otherwise, I will see you on tomorrow night with an awesome episode with Howdy McCoskey. Howdy's such a badass. I'm so excited every time we get to talk. And that's going to be a great episode. And then I will see you again, for the episodes that I have after that I can't remember. So much love to you all. And right then, something flew into the back of my throat. So really poor timing. And anyways, I'm so excited for tomorrow. And remember, we're bringing the brightness to the One Day of Brightness. We're doing it because of the solstice. We're aligning with the energies of the solstice, and this solstice is super special. It's beyond just a solstice. It's the solstice after the 3-year pause. It concludes the 3-year pause we had, sort of seemingly outside of time, and as things are all getting in line for this next stage, and this concludes that, the next stage begins. And so, whether you're coming to One Day of Brightness or not, the solstice is important for you to assert your alignment with the light and all that's good, true, and beautiful. And you can just do that by knowing it, by thinking it, by feeling it, and by being with that feeling. And you can do it even more concretely if you come to One Day of Brightness. But if you're not left out. We love you. We'll send you all the love we can. And otherwise, enjoy the solstice, align with that light, bring the lightness in for those 3 days of darkness that follow the solstice. Keep it alive in your heart. It can never die. They can't block it out. They can't disconnect it if it's there within you, and it is. So know it and feel it strong. Know which side you're on. And until you do, travel well, aim for balance, and always look inside first. Mwah.
Nasty motherfuckers with a hook and a sickle. Brought to you advertisement, bone plated nickel. Fire rate automatic smash from the get-go. Snack on the whack, fermented flesh disco. Abracadabra, archaic altars don't slapper. Hey, making jabbers, flip reality backwards. Hunting rap nerds, bodyguard collected actors. Munitions are famished, let them feast upon the dapper. Bloody bibs and muddy kicks, feasting on amygdala. Iron fist, tyrant shit, APO will rip you up. The rhyme rainmaker, vein style backbreaker. Genghis Khan depleted uranium satellite lasers. Cloaked in anonymity, I know you never heard of me. No rusted tools used for Crowley style surgery.
Dissect a whole set, God body. God taught me to dissect the whole body. When it gets sloppy, I'ma get there. Rhymes rare like steak, get crushed like crates to create 52 states. And it's Baghdad, dust the towels, no rags, straight melt dash. Dust the ash, turbans while the niggas perkin'. It's on purpose, my service touches the sun's surface, and rainbows touch serpents. My light all night shines so bright. I'm a star for eons, Hollywood's for peons, cause they try to copy the same shit we on. Hey, I ain't done yet, lungs depleted and can't breathe, can't believe it. Trying to seek it while trying to peep it, it's a secret. Now you're nobody, label somebody, trying to claim John Gotti. It's yours truly, God body.